Hi, welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case. Welcome if you're currently here in the live premiere. Today, going to be analysing the latest, newest interview of Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds from the East Idaho News Channel. It's just recently come about, and there is some shocking news, some shocking discoveries which have been talked about within the interview, as well as some possible contradictions as well. I would say, despite the interview itself only being around 16 minutes, it's arguably one of the most important interviews I've heard, which has, talked about some of the most interesting stuff in the case, okay? So today, what I will be doing is analysing it, giving you my thoughts, my opinions on the matter, maybe comparing and contrasting to what we originally knew of to what we know of now, okay? And as we do go along, you can share your thoughts, opinions, and reactions in the chat box, right? If we do come across any resistance, just try and ignore it and just focus on the Dylan Rounds case. Feel free to ask questions as we do go along, and I'll try and answer them to do with this case. But I think what we'll do just first of all is check back on the last video to acknowledge the comments. As a heads up, the comment section won't take as long this time compared to yesterday. So shout out to the people who were patient and stuck around. Also, what I do want to acknowledge is we actually hit a new personal best on this channel. Yesterday, there was a total at one point of about 114 live viewers, which is all good. So it just goes to show that I can reach those numbers despite what the odd few individuals in the background say, claiming that I never have done. Well, they're liars and they get things wrong like how they normally do. There's actually proof, statistical proof. Even Watcher of Crazy can, say she witnessed it because she was there and she's into stats and all of that, as she said. It seems to get her really excited. But got to maintain some form of a leash today, Watcher of Crazy, because we've got some very important information to talk about. So everyone that is present right now and is joining, make sure to stick around so you understand the full story of what's recently gone down with Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds. If you haven't already then, regarding my previous video, which was a breaking news discovery of a piece of clothing found by someone and also documented and passed on from Ty Corbin with his footage, there will be a link down below to check that video out. You want to see it? Well, the link's down below, okay? What we can do now is just check the comments, see if any questions that need to be answered, any additional points, and then go from there, okay? What I'll just do is arrange it to the newest, and we start from the bottom. KB saying, Warlight Raf has periodically told us that he never blocks or kicks anyone in his chat, and he is 100% honest. So reality is I have never kicked anyone out of the chat. When it comes to blocking, for most part of it, that's the key sentence I have always used. For most part of it, people haven't been blocked. And good example is last night, okay? And we'll just briefly acknowledge it because it was obvious. Whether, regardless of who was present watching, what, level of audience, Jim Terry did pop on in, more so just advertising his channel, something he, usually does here and there on other channels too, but it was a little excessive. You could say he was spamming the chat, but it's obvious as to why it was being done. Kind of like when a person throws their toys out of the pram, they have a bit of a hissy fit, bit of a whingy whiner moment. It's just one of those little mini meltdowns, okay? It is what it is. But eventually it was drowned out by the focus on the Dylan Rounds case. And once again, if it happens tonight, we just follow the same steps as we did yesterday, and so on and so on. It's all under control, okay? As well, the reason why it's important to allow Jim Terry to leave a comment here and there is because if he does make an idiot of himself, that's down to him. That's his own doing. If he wants to, then he can. If he wants to appear neutral, he can. If he wants to appear as if he knows it all, he can. It enables the opportunity for Jim Terry to talk openly in the chat, as well, maybe Mr. X. But it also enables the opportunity for the general public human race to see those characters in their full glory, for good reasons or bad, right? It's another way of documenting and getting, if you want to call it, receipts of certain behaviour. Documented pancakes in the past with certain comments. People were like, whoa, how did you get a hold of that? Or, damn, I never would have thought of doing something like that. I did the same with Jim Terry in the past when he was on his knees apologising to me because he made a mistake, right? It is what it is. Now, let's continue on. Robert Berger saying, headband full of DNA? Question. After a year, who knows? So this is in response to the piece of clothing that was found yesterday, day before, okay? Video was made yesterday. The actual discovery of the hat was the day before that, okay? But the question last night was, how long was that hat, baseball cap around for near the side of that road? I think someone said 20 feet off the road, nearby, basically. How long has it been there? And if it's in open sight, why did it take so long to find it? Well, there were some additional responses last night. I think Weezer chipped in as well with what she knew of, saying how it was half buried in the ground and it kind of had a clay-like texture and stains on the hat, bit dirty, as if it might have been buried, but not completely. Was it done man-made? Was it natural? Unknown of. Miss T guidance added in the possibility that it was truly buried, but maybe due to weathering and rainfall over time, it washed it away slightly, eroded bits, and it became in view. Now, you could put the argument across and say, could that ever happen to Dylan Rounds, wherever he is buried? We'll do a poll right now based on this topic and theme. The poll can be, do you think that there is a chance with time, down to natural weathering and weather itself, like rainfall, coldness, I don't know, could that be the key factor which exposes Dylan Round's burial site, wherever that may be? I know in the past Weezer was talking about ground disturbance and how it takes time for the ground to settle. That was another factor. Okay. Just let me know your thoughts in the poll. Make sure to chat. Make sure to vote. Okay? I mean, we should come to a conclusion eventually about the cap, providing Ty Corbin does a follow-up update video and it's not kept quiet like how Lance Kelly has done in the past with certain findings, which may have been a dead end. It's always good, though, to acknowledge a dead end result just so it ticks it off the list. If you don't clear it up, then it just remains a mystery. That doesn't help, right? So yeah, eventually we should get the DNA results back. Hopefully it can be talked about public. We got Beatrice saying, yes, this video of the John Deere hat is breaking news. Thanks. I mean, what I would say is, if the cap was of a different brand and it wasn't John Deere, then maybe you could say it's not as breaking news. But with it saying John Deere and considering Dylan was to wear John Deere hats, caps, makes you think, what's this one? Pam? I don't know what Pam was doing here. Here you go. News 8, Idaho News with Nate, East Idaho News. Hashtag. I think Pam got a little bit too carried away with the comments. Or it could be one of those things where you kept posting the comment and it said wouldn't post or error message. And you find out afterwards you've posted it like 2-3 times. It's happened to me in the past. Silly YouTube once again. Linda Cushing. Warlike Raf, why is there a red heart in my chat today? I personally don't know. Above the chat bar, Christy, you can click it and send hearts or other emojis to Rafi during the video. Let's try it next time. Well, okay, I guess we could give it a try right now. everyone in the chat right now, if you see a heart or something of that symbol in the chat up above or something, click on it, okay? Don't worry, it's not going to kick you out of the stream. I think it might be something interactive, but just click on it and see what happens, okay? Everybody, click it now. Right, see what that looks like on the screen. Pam again with yet another comment. Calm down, Pam. Cindy, did law enforcement verify the baseball cap belonging to Dylan Rounds? Also curious, have you been to see Brenna to ask questions? Well, Cindy, I've not pulled a brookie at this moment in time, okay? As for this law enforcement verification, I think it's way too soon considering it only happened a couple of days ago. I think there'll be a little period of waiting about because it's also got to be sent to the labs. And I don't know if it's entirely true, but I'm sure I saw a comment by Tom Evans saying it could take 7 to 12 weeks when processing DNA or something with labs. I don't know if that applies in this scenario or just in others, but it was just a loose figure I heard of in between, okay? Lone Wolf, love the curl in the hair. Who does your hair? Maria Mojano. She does it, okay? Bill Brooks, Bob who? Bob the Builder. If you talk about who is Bob Farrell. Oh no, I said it wrong. Bob Farrell. I used to call Bob feral like a feral animal because I thought that's how it was spelled, but I realised that was wrong. Bob Farrell, an individual who has supported this channel in recent time, which is good of him. He's also got his own channel, has done a few videos here and there, live streams, bit of a divide here and there, obviously with different audiences, but people have listened in to Bob with his recent talks on the case. He started in kind of like recent time uploading videos. What else do we have? Badger Life saying Jim Terry, the con man. So many people are fooled by him and it's so difficult for them to realise they've been conned. Jim is only doing this because the family didn't want him. Comments, people fool themselves. I mean, all I will say is, in a general scenario on YouTube, if you got a certain channel which could be causing trouble, just in general, and then you've got an audience behind it that backs it and supports it, it can be a little bit dodgy at times. Whilst everyone can be quick to call out and take shots at that one channel, okay, and the person behind it, you've also got to consider the audience technically are a part of it because they're supporting it by following that creator, right? Does it apply here? Well, it varies quite a lot because many different people, many different audiences from different channels, it's kind of all, it's like a mixed bag, right? I know some people could call out some Pancake audience members or Jim Terry audience members, but the ones that have come on in here haven't caused me any problems, right? So like Betty Hayward, Miss T on here is a good example. Dale and Graham in their own unique way, in quotation marks, are okay. Steady Eddie, Fast Eddie, hasn't really caused me any problems in this chat, right? Anyone else? Weedleby, Gorilla Jack. So that's what I'm saying. At least from my experience and my experience only, I've seen potential good sides in these different individuals and many more people out there in which other humans out there who see these people may only see the bad side of them. You get what I'm saying? So I've seen, not all the time, not at all, but more than usual, I've seen the good side of these individuals. But don't worry, I'm not some delusional, rainbow, sparkly person that bends over backwards. Not at all. Let's move on. We got Goldie Khan with a super chat. Shout out to Goldie Khan. Good individual. They are a good individual and they've been around for a bit now on the channel. Saying thanks, bitch boys, posse. Yeah, it's like a little line I use at times. It kind of works out. What's this? Don't mention it. I see you're working overtime doing TC and it does not go unnoticed. Albeit my absence may get me whipped. Well, because of YouTube being a bit strict at the moment, whips are kind of on hold. But, you know, if you want a whip, Goldie Khan, at some point you can have one if that's what you want, okay? So it will be under control eventually. Shout out to Goldie Khan. Also got Christy B saying, very interesting video, Rafi. Thank you. You have the best analysis on YouTube. You would make a great private investigator. No wonder why some feel peed off. Maybe. Christy also saying, true. There is no evidence Dylan was dismembered. Correct. But do we have evidence that he's dead? Okay. I mean, got to keep the balance, to be honest, in a way. Realistically, there's no true proof of Dylan being dismembered. There's no hand, hair, leg over there. That's not the case at this moment in time. So it kind of rules that out. Maybe the weak bit of evidence to suggest dismemberment would be blood found on the boot and more so on Brenna, right? A level of blood makes you think. In terms of the evidence side to do with is Dylan dead or not, Tom Evans is still on the fence. He's questioning things, right? I would say the evidence, which may not be enough, but to me, it's enough for me to have an idea. Evidence to suggest Dylan is no longer alive would be simply the length of time he's been missing for. Also, no transactions made elsewhere, like bank accounts or anything like that, or the money's on hold or not been used up, okay? As well, the blood on Brenna's shirt, the blood on Dylan's boot, little blood droplet, all blood belonged to Dylan. The more blood you find here and there, you kind of think, oh, well, Dylan must have lost a fair bit of blood, right? And if you've lost a fair bit of blood, you're probably not going to be feeling too well, right? So, murdered on the spot or died slowly due to blood loss, either way can result in death, right? So that's what I would say, okay? Maybe another piece of evidence which hasn't been found yet, if it ever will, whether it exists or not. If you found like a spent cartridge case, a bullet, some kind of shrapnel, they found a missing gun and it had some kind of prints or DNA on it, then you could say, well, maybe that was the item used in the murder of Dylan. Because you think about it, it seems likely that Dylan has passed away and been murdered, and, you know, official charges, you got to take that in mind, and the official court documents say that too, with those charges. The blood as well of Dylan, but no evidence item has been found which could have been used to take Dylan out, whether it be a blunt instrument, sharp instrument, or like a gun, a firearm. None of that has been found, which is kind of interesting. In the past, there were suggestions, ideas that maybe Brenna choked Dylan to death, and that's what led to possible biological matter, like vomit being found in the grain shed. But then it wouldn't explain that level of blood, right? So a bit back and forth, but maybe down the line, maybe another piece of evidence could be found. More so, an object which you could interpret as being used to take Dylan out, right? Maybe that will come. Anyway, what else do we have? Jacqueline, I don't watch Rumble, haven't done for over a year. Me neither, really. Recently, I tried uploading a Rumble video, besides it taking a long time to upload, and it didn't even give a percentage or a length of time to how long it would actually take to upload, so that's pretty much useless. When I did select my custom created thumbnail as like what you see on YouTube, on Rumble, for some reason, it allowed me to use it, but then when it uploaded the video, the thumbnail wasn't there. So it was just of my face. And when people see my face, not everyone will click on the video. But it's just stupid how Rumble won't even let me use my own custom thumbnail. It's a useless platform in my opinion. It was just like to experiment with in between, right? Jacqueline also says, has someone misunderstood the word desecrated and dissected, then made this tale up? I don't believe Dylan is in pieces. I mean, it could be a tale, a story which came from someone's imagination. I mean, the origins of where I heard it from, the whole dismemberment, was all those spiritual, happy flappy individuals, hippie happy, whatever you call them, with the little crystals, shining them and shoving them where the sun doesn't shine, and the spirit boxes too. That's where it originated from at the start. And Candice Cooley did dispel those rumours back then and gossip. And then, with time, the more known or controversial channels ended up talking about it too, about dismemberment. So I would say it originated from the spiritual psychics and all those, right? They don't really have much of a leg to stand on. So yeah, it could be a like little story time, and that's about it. Though the desecration part, what we do need to acknowledge is an umbrella term which can apply to like a body remains being broken up, burnt down, like destroyed evidence in a way. Can also mean hiding, concealing a body, like in this case, but it can also apply to hiding a body, then digging it back up, removing elsewhere, right? Like how I suggested in this case, in which other humans resisted and said I was wrong. We'll see what happens later on in this video. Better make sure you make notes around that, okay? What else do we have here? Linda. Oh, Linda Cushing. You've got another Linda on your tail. What does this Linda say? Brenna had his hat, remember? Everyone was saying, why would he wear his hat? So that's when everyone was saying he did it now. They found his hat. How's that? It's probably a planet. What planet? Uranus. If you notice, very time they talk about someone else being blamed or talked about things start being found, it's just not right. Something funny is going on. So you think with the past and the conspiracies there about Brenna supposedly stealing Dylan's hat because it looked the same, it was the same brand, that you could be getting a scenario like it now where it turns out to be absolutely nothing and no link at all? Maybe, but you still have to follow things through with a level of seriousness just in case, because if you brush over something, that could be the one time there's a lead, there's like something of genuinity, right? And as for the cap back then to do with Brenna, it was more of a theory-based discussion. Now, maybe other channels went too far and too deep, but when I covered it on my channel, I was just pointing out the possibility, saying, oh, they kind of look familiar. They look similar. Could it be the same one? Yes, no? Let me know your thoughts down below. I think I only made one video on it, so we didn't go too deep. Anything else? Badger. Most farmers have two of the same hat, one for working and one to wear to town. Jim was wearing the town hat. So Badger, when you say Jim, you're talking about Jim Brenner, right? And are we referring to the town baseball cap of Brenner, of that photo to do with Brenner in that blue jacket? Is that what we're referring to here? Let me know. Linda also says, who found the hat? I thought it was all looked over out there. How could it just pop up? Yeah, it does seem a bit weird how with all the resources and searches taking place in recent time and in the past, why only now did someone like Ty Corbin, Kelly, whoever, two-stroke, I don't know what they're doing now, ended up being involved coming across it. Though, with the talk last night saying it was kind of buried, maybe it was a little bit more concealed than expected. Though surely, if there was any form of soil disturbance, then the drones flying over the area would have detected it, unless the drones weren't used in that one spot. You never know, right? Anything else? No, that's it for the comment section. Okay, fair enough. So it's now time we move on to the main talking point of this video, sharing with you the latest shocking news in the Dylan Rounds case as told by Candice Cooley and Justin Rounds. As said, only a 16-minute interview, yet arguably one of the most important interviews yet, as there was quite a lot of stuff talked about and quite a few notes jotted down. I've got a couple of bullet points in front of me this time. I'm just going to read through them and then I'm going to further analyse if necessary. Be sure to share your thoughts, opinions, reactions in the live chat. Okay? So it first starts off with Candice Cooley opening, saying how there's no leads in the case, that we've not really got anywhere. When you hear that straight away, you think, well, that's not good, is it? Not exactly promising. And that's what I was thinking at the start, though it didn't surprise me too much because in recent time, the level of quietness, them going out there here and there and not much being developed, it was like, well, yeah, it is where it is. It's, that's what made me think. I wonder if that's what caused Justin Rounds to call out Don Hately on Facebook, which is now a deleted post. If you would like to know what Justin Rounds said about Don Hately most recently, you'll have to check my previous videos out when talking about it and sharing with you the screenshot. Make sure not to miss that so you understand the context behind us all, right? And also, just as a little update from last night, if you weren't aware, besides Ty Corbin doing the video about the cap, John Deere cap being found, and Ty Corbin saying about he was going to reach out to Justin Rounds about it, Justin Rounds called out Don Hately before he knew about this cap. Okay? Weezer confirmed it too because she was like, reached out to Justin and heard what the scenario situation was. Okay? So with that being in mind, it does make you think, how would Justin react now? If Justin, before finding out about the cap being found, which could be of Dylan's, and having a go at Don, saying, if you've got anything to do with this, I'm going to spill your guts. And yet now, if he was told about the cap being found near Don Hately's place, is that going to send Justin over the edge? Trigger him, prompt him to go down to Casper, Wyoming, where Don Hately is staying at with family also? It does make you think. We can do a poll right now, based off what we now know of. Do you think there is a chance that if Justin hears about the cap being found by Ty and his crew, will that be enough to send Justin to go down to Casper, Wyoming and take a visit to Don's place? Yes? No? Maybe? Make sure to vote right now. Kind of interesting now. It's like a turning point, possible catalyst. Yeah? And if it doesn't happen now, if the lab reports come back at a later date about this cap being of Dylan's, I'm sure it will lead to something, right, later on. Now, I don't think Candice Cooley knows about it. Will she ever know? Is anyone going to tell her? How is she going to react about it, right? Is Candice Cooley's first response going to be, yeah, it's been found. So what? We've been round there and we've never seen it before. So obviously it's been planted there by these people. That's something, Candice Cooley could say. She has said it in the past. Would it be true? I don't know. It depends. All depends on the lab report, in my opinion, right? I just think Candice Cooley, if that wasn't the case, Candice Cooley would also be annoyed just for the simple fact that someone like Ty Corbin and those other people found it before she did. She might be a bit frustrated there. But that aside, I just wanted to add that in from yesterday's discussions, if you weren't already aware, okay? Let's proceed onwards with this new talk and new information within the interview. So besides Candice Cooley saying no leads, she said she, Justin and others, family, have been out there a lot within the last 2 months or so because of the weather improving. And it's interesting, Candice Cooley saying they've been out there a lot. But then in recent time, when someone online asked Candice Cooley, have you been out there recently? Candice said no. The only time Candice Cooley said they were out there, which is probably way back now with the last No Thanks interview. Not this upcoming one, but the last one, which was months ago, I believe, where Candice Cooley said, oh yeah, we were out there a couple of weeks back for 4 days straight, and we didn't hear anything ever since then. But in recent time, more recent time, 21st of May on a Sunday, Candice Cooley, a sheriff at one point earlier on in the day, and a couple of others, which probably was Justin and someone else, was out there near Lucin Pond, right? It does make you think when you look back now, 21st of May, so about what, 7-8 days before the cap was found, yeah? And Candice Cooley, sheriff, and whoever else was nearby that area as to where Ty Corbin was stood. It does make you think, doesn't it? Weird how the family, sheriff, anyone like that didn't come across that hat nearby. Yeah, 7-8 days later, Ty Corbin and Kelly and whoever else came across it. Yeah. You see all these weird links forming in this short space of time. Kind of interesting. But besides that, okay, if Candice Cooley family have been out there a lot searching for Dylan, I guess that is a positive, right? Candice also said in the interview that special teams were brought along, the Canine units, special equipment as well was used. So the way it's been worded, an upgrade to what was used in the past. The type of teams present and more so the equipment used. Though still, with all that, it did not lead to any new evidence, new leads from the looks of it at this moment in time of the way the interview was going, right? So, okay, they've been out there recent, so you'd expect probably quite a few track marks all over, right, if you used to go down there now. Candice Cooley added in saying the main line, so I assume Dylan's main line, pivot area, the main line, the grain shed and the pond, checking places off, as Candice Cooley said. Later on in the interview, Candice Cooley and Justin did say that the main line, shed, grain shed and pond have all been ticked off the list as they have spent hours upon hours in those areas and seem very confident that absolutely nothing of new value or Dylan's remains are within those areas, right? That's what they think. The main line, grain shed and pond have all been completely cleared, nothing to see here, no need to visit or explore. The end. Is that quite straight to the point? Yeah. Is there a great deal of confidence? Yeah. Are you likely to believe in it? I don't know. It depends who you are and what you've listened to within this case. If you just come on in and hear that, what Candice Cooley said, checking those places off, you probably would go along with it. Though, with Candice Cooley getting some things wrong over time, being inaccurate, you could question and say, yeah, but what about the main line? What about the grain shed? There might be more to it, or nearby, you never know. Though, maybe in defence of Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds did display a level of confidence himself, speaking on his own behalf, nodding and saying, yeah, we have checked it, we've spent hours there. So if you don't believe what Candice Cooley says, Justin Rounds does back it up, so you might be more likely to believe in what he says, which is the same thing as Candice Cooley, right? Now, next point mentioned, everybody in chat right now, make sure you're focused and listening, because this is arguably, in a way, a massive contradiction in a sense, okay, if you think about it long enough. So make sure you're focused right now. Candice Cooley then went on to say in the interview, I guess when Nate Eaton asked a question to do with Brenna, Candice Cooley said, in quotes, "Brenna, he's not talking. He's not talking." Well, would you expect him to? Not really. But because of what we know of from the past and what Candice Cooley has said months ago, that around 3rd of March, when Brenna was charged, and in that interview at the time, which might have been on East Idaho News or No Thanks Doug, Candice Cooley in one of those interviews around that time, a bit later, referred to how Candice Cooley said, Brenna is willing to open up and reveal the location of where Dylan Round's remains are. That's what Candice Cooley said. At least at that moment in time, Brenna was willing to talk, right? What happened though? Candice Cooley and Justin turned the offer down because they felt confident enough that they could be the ones to find Dylan and not have help from the devil, if you want to call it like that. And yet now Candice Cooley is suddenly accusing Brenna and calling him out, saying he's not talking. Maybe for most part of it, he's not, but there was a moment, an opportunity, a time to be able to witness Brenna talking, but you turned it down. I assume that Candice Cooley is aware of that. I assume so. Do you see that slight contradiction? Saying Brenna's not talking, but he was willing to in the past, but Candice Cooley Justin turned it down. So you can't really be complaining at this moment in time when there was a chance back then. So that's a slight contradiction, right? Then the talk started leading more towards the last court hearing of Brenna in that interview, okay? There's not been any interviews with Candice Cooley since that April 24th court hearing with Brenna, right? So it was a matter of time, right, for when the next interview comes out on YouTube, you guess, they'd be talking about it. And that's exactly what happened yesterday in the East Idaho News Channel 1, okay? And Candice Cooley basically broke it down in the order of how it all played out. So initially, 24th of April, 2023, court hearing with Brenna. Candice Cooley anticipated Brenna to plead guilty or not guilty, whichever one, though it didn't even get to that point. It didn't even come to a conclusion. It was delayed till June the 5th. And the reason why that happened was because Brenna's original attorney ended up quitting on Brenna, walked away. Why? Don't really know, but that's what happened. So on the 24th of April 2023, when Brenna turned up at that court hearing with no attorney, they couldn't really get on with stuff, right? So during that time of that hearing, they were talking about appointing a new attorney, number 2, the second attorney. And that did happen. And from there on, what probably should have happened was wait till June the 5th, and then that second attorney would end up representing Brenna. But Candice Cooley said that second attorney also quit on Brenna. And it's like, wow, everybody turning down Brenna. I wonder why. Do they detest him that much? A strong conflict of interest? Makes you think, right? So because of that second attorney quitting, in an interview Candice Cooley said they then filed 2 more attorneys. Has that been a success? Well, there's not really been much else mentioned since, right? But 2 more attorneys have been filed, okay? So that's where things are at this moment in time with Brenna and his legal team, okay? Then, Candice Cooley also mentioned that Box Elder have showed the evidence which has been collected over time to Brenna. Now, maybe that's just a normal standard thing, to be honest, but I wonder how Brenna reacted when he saw that evidence shown by Box Elder. Was he shocked? Surprised? Was he like, yeah, it's not enough, it's not that bad, it's not that incriminating? Or was he thinking, oh damn, that 27-second clip of me with the blood on my shirt from Dylan cleaning that gun. Oh, how did I miss that? I thought I deleted it when I threw it in the pond. You know, what's going through Brenna's mind at that time when looking at that evidence? Let me know your thoughts down below. Did he feel invincible? Or did it break on him the realization of, damn, there is incriminating evidence against me? Let me know your thoughts down below, okay? Now, aside from that, Candice Cooley said the way things have gone, especially with that court hearing 24th of April, how things have basically practically fell through and attorneys quitting on Brenna, cases being delayed, pushed back. Candice Cooley feels like Brenna is in Weber County Jail laughing, thinking he's untouchable, he's in control, he's like the key to finding Dylan, but at the same time, he's kind of untouchable at the moment because not much is being done. Not much progression is happening. So I think Candice Cooley may feel and think that way because other experiences, as she's described, the police did that to her, Box Elder, Sheriff's Office, right? The LE, they laughed at Candice Cooley in the past during the case, in the early days. So maybe that's why Candice Cooley is a bit too alert, assuming that Brenna's doing the same thing. Though, from what we've heard, Brenna is quite cold, emotionless. Maybe he isn't laughing. I don't know. If anyone can confirm, is Brenna the type of person to be quite smug, have a bit of a cocky laugh, any of that? Or is he just simply cold and quiet and that's about it, aside from the aggression? Let me know if you got those additional points list down below. As well, Candice Cooley said, no plea. There has been no plea. So I assume guilty, not guilty, that hasn't taken place. And that would make sense because the 24th of April court hearing, that never went underway properly. So no wonder why there was no plea. As for the plea deal, that was kind of like offered up in the past to Candice Cooley Justin, who turned it down, which consisted of a certain outcome for revealing information of Dylan Round's remains, but it was turned down that. Okay, I think there's a difference between a plea and a plea deal. Okay, the plea is simply guilty, not guilty. A plea deal is, on top of that, some kind of negotiating, right? So each party gets something they need and want, right? I like that. All in all, through that time since the 3rd of March 2023, where it felt like things were kicking off in the right direction, Brenna being officially charged with the murder and desecration of Dylan Rounds, 3 months on, since then, nothing else has happened. No more progression. That's what Candice Cooley basically said in the East Idaho News Channel interview. So maybe it's all coming back, that feeling of in the early days of the case, no progression, it's happening once again. Yeah, it's probably a bit frustrating, right? Also, regarding June the 5th, the court case, right? June the 5th, we thought, you know, it's coming up, right? It's edging ever so closer. From what Candice Cooley has said, that's likely not going to happen anymore. So what that implies is the next court hearing, which should be June 5th, has been postponed, delayed further. That's exactly what I said to Tom Evans about a week ago or so. He was talking about, oh, when's the next court hearing? Someone replied, June 5th. And I added in my response saying, if it actually happens, it'll probably be delayed. And look what's happened. It's been delayed again. And also, I predicted it. Okay. So let's move on to the next lot of notes within this East Idaho News Channel interview. Continuation to do with referring to Brenna. Talk about the death penalty as well. It seems to be on and off. The way they confirmed it from that court hearing, 24th of April 2023, death penalty has been taken off the tables. But in the East Idaho News Channel interview, when Nate Eaton asked her about the death penalty, the way she responds, it's as if it's still a possibility. Now, is she being delusional, or is there a slight chance? because Candice Cooley briefly mentioned, I don't know if it's true, if Gloria Dillon is present, maybe she can correct me or correct her, but Candice Cooley said the only time when two attorneys are filed to one person is a sign of to do with the death penalty being on the table. But what we've heard of, it's been taken away, the death penalty. So from what Candice Cooley says, what, it's been put back on Brenna? I don't know about that, but that's how Candice Cooley worded it. So it seems to be on, off, which is a bit messy, okay? Candice Cooley also said, this is quite an important part, okay? Yeah, just wanted to confirm. What we're now talking about is one of the most important parts within this entire case. The possibilities, right? It'll make more sense in a second, but everyone in the chat right now, make sure to be focused and listening, because what's going to be said here is very important and kind of links back to what I was originally saying back then, right? So it starts off to do with the searches for Dylan. Candice Cooley said, we were out there Wednesday clearing a suspicious spot. Now, very vague that, but it makes you think, right? And when she said Wednesday, does she mean Wednesday just gone? She didn't exactly give the date. You'd assume Wednesday just gone, right? They were clearing a suspicious spot. The Canine unit with the dog came on down to check it. Did it lead to any discoveries? I don't know. Candice Cooley didn't really explain. So the possibilities of being very vague could imply something was found, but they don't want to say yet, public, right? And when they say a suspicious spot, what, the way it looked visually, certain readings, behaviour by people within that area that gave a sense of suspicion, it opens up all kinds of questions, right? But we don't just stop there, because there's a bit more to get onto, which gets really important. So we haven't even reached the main part yet. So just hold on with me. Candice Cooley referring to other areas like the main line, saying that it was dug up 6 weeks. That's how she actually worded it. The main line has been dug up 6 weeks. It was dug up the very first time in the early days, and it was also dug up 6 weeks. She didn't use the word ago. So I don't know if Candice Cooley means the main line was dug up at the start of the case back in 2022 and then was dug up 6 weeks later, or if she means that most recently, 2023, the main line was dug up 6 weeks ago. She missed out that key word, ago. That would have helped provide a better clarity. So you'll notice a pattern in the East Idaho News interview where Candice Cooley misses out on some key words which provide some kind of relevant context to exactly when it happened, right? But yeah, main line being dug up once again. Now, is Candice Cooley talking about Dylan's main line or the main line of the pivot north of the Grangeshed property on the other side of the railroad tracks and wash, which does not belong to Dylan, but was a spot which at the time under ownership of an individual who was ill, Don Haley had to look after to monitor the seeds, but failed to do so. That was dug up as well from what quintessential Quinton said, right? So whichever main line 6 weeks maybe ago was dug back up, double checked. Supposedly they didn't find anything, but I guess there's no harm in digging it all up. Justin Rounds added in saying they dug it all up completely. So that provides a bit of a better understanding there. Like, if you was to go down there now in Lucin and look at the main line, would you be able to detect that it's been dug up 6 weeks ago? Yes? No? Anyone confirm? That could provide a bit of context there, right, as to when. Justin added in his own points. Besides being a little bit quiet in the interview, as you'd expect when Candice Cooley is there, Justin did say that there's lots of mounds, dirt mounds out there within Lucin, and it's almost impossible to check them all. That Justin Candice did check the odd one out in recent time, but they found nothing there. So dirt mounds, possibilities of like a burial, a grave, right? Though it would seem a bit obvious, wouldn't it? But then again, if there's that many mounds out there, you probably could get away with putting Dylan in one. You think about it, the very main focus at the beginning was the dirt mound near the grain shed where the boots were found. Looking through that, though supposedly they didn't find anything. And that's why they've been checking other mounds ever since. Justin did add in saying some of them are caused by animals. I don't know why animals cause mounds, what, from digging up the ground and then the dirt builds nearby and piles on top of each other? Maybe. Does it become compacted the same way as if someone did it in a man-made fashion? Maybe. I mean, due to weathering, when it rains, it might compact it in itself naturally. So there is that. But yeah, as for true mounds, I've not really seen too many, but it just depends what footage I've been looking at. Maybe some are bigger than others. Possibly majority are quite small, low to the ground. But, you know, you can't help but think when you do see them, you might assume, oh, maybe possible disturbance to the soil, the dirt. But then again, isn't that why the drones are there, for obvious reasons, to be able to pinpoint what is what, make sense of it quicker? Yeah. Anyway, besides that, this is where we get on to one of the most important points, right? And I'm not joking about when I say this, okay, because it really does link back to what I was saying as possibilities. Everyone listening? Candice Cooley said that there was an area where dog groups, different canine dog groups over time, reacted in a certain way in the specific area for months. Now, the location has not been given, nor coordinates, but there is an area over time for months where when dog groups have come on in or passed by, the dogs have reacted in a certain way. Could imply sniffing, the scent of something, possibly of remains. You get what I'm saying? And adding on to that, Candice Cooley said, based off that area which was checked, in quotes, she thinks Dylan was there whilst Brenna was thinking what to do next. Just let that process in. Sure, Candice Cooley is giving an opinion. It's not a fact. Take that into mind as well. But the reality is, different dog groups over time, not just one, no biasness, but many different groups, and the dogs have all reacted the same way in a particular spot, an area. It does make you question, right? If there's a similar reaction throughout different types of dogs, different groups, in this one spot, there must be something going on, right? So most likely, more than likely, searched, checked, but nothing found. Well, obviously Dylan's not there, but the possibilities Dylan was once there, right? The dog can sniff something out, like a remnants, some kind of remains, possibly leaked, scattered, right? What that implies is the umbrella term desecration, okay? And like how I read it out in the past, and you'd have to check my past videos out, when I was reading the official court documents about desecration and the news articles, it was basically implying that Dylan was buried somewhere and then dug back up and moved elsewhere. And that falls under the term desecration. Now, many people didn't agree with me and showed resistance back then. One individual that, only as an example because it's the only person I can think of at the time, Nick, whatever his username is, who pops in at times, profile picture of a baseball cap or something, Nick TV, was saying how, nope, That's not desecration. Nope, Dylan wasn't removed elsewhere. Nope, 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 not at all. It's depending on how you read the text at the time. Okay. And what I was saying in response to Nick, but also many other people, that in the official court documents at the time, when it gave the charge towards Brenna of desecration of human remains, it gave conditions. Simple concealment of a body, removing a body, so digging a person out of the ground and putting them elsewhere, or damage to the body. So like setting it on fire, breaking it down, destroying evidence. It was an umbrella term that gave different conditions based off how it could have gone about, right? What we've now heard of today with that East Idaho News Channel interview, it kind of leans and edges closer towards the possibilities that Brenna and maybe someone else did in fact bury Dylan in a particular spot, as worded here, in which the dogs reacted to after Dylan was moved away. If you bury a body somewhere, it may leak. There might be substance, there might be bits of DNA which seeps into the soil and dirt. You dig that person back out, make sure there's nothing remaining, and then take them wherever, bury them elsewhere. That original spot will hold a form of DNA over a period of time. Time limited though, okay? So that could explain why the dogs were reacting how they were over time in that one spot. Hence why Candice Cooley came to a possible conclusion that Dylan was temporarily buried in that one particular spot and then moved on elsewhere after. And it would make sense because maybe you're doing it on the spot. You know, if you think Dylan was taken out, from the looks of it, murdered 28th of May 2022, and then it gave Brenna the rest of the afternoon to dispose of Dylan if necessary, and maybe Brenna did it temporarily, put Dylan in a particular spot where those dogs reacted to later on, right? Because later on in the day, Brenna also attended Don Haley's barbecue, right? So just to get on with things, rush on, and then the day later, full day, full opportunity to then move Dylan elsewhere and put him in a better hiding spot, right? If you think about it, if that never happened, if Dylan was never removed elsewhere under the desecration term, right, Dylan would be found right now. And I actually said that statement months ago in that news article, and people said to me, whoa, that's a bit far, that bit of a stretch. You're making a very bold statement there. And look where I am right now, saying the same thing as like how Candice Cooley worded it. Possibilities that in that area where the dogs were reacting to, considering nothing was found there after what was there originally. You know, I don't think it would have been possible within the time period, because if Brenna buried Dylan 28th temporarily, removed him on the 29th, or maybe on the Monday, by the time the family, search and rescue get down there, they wouldn't have a chance. But if Brenna thought, oh, this spot will do, it wouldn't have done, and Dylan would have been found by now. So, at this moment in time of speaking, it does seem like possibility that I may have been correct, once again, to do with the desecration part. Let me know your thoughts about that. We don't just end there, because there are some yet more shocking discoveries and additional points to be made, which may make you think, oh, here we go again. So on top of that key area, suspicious spot where dogs were reacting to because of some kind of scent or DNA there, do you know what Candice Cooley said? That one particular area was never forensically tested, analysed. Too late. Because with time, it was lost, whatever it was. So in the early days, whatever that scent or DNA, whatever in that spot was, it was fresh. But with time, it's faded, right? It can't be there forever. So that one key important spot, wasn't forensically tested. So are the police, the LE, to blame for that? Incompetence? Not being proactive enough? Not checking out that one spot? Did Candice Cooley tell the LE about that area? Hey, you need to come down here. You need to do some kind of forensic on the area. And they were like, no, we won't. If that really is the case, wow. Still, if some kind of forensics took place back then, it probably wouldn't have led to Dylan being found in that spot because of the conditions as listed by me beforehand. But it could have really reinforced that this is where Dylan was once at, like 100% nailed on. Though, will we ever get that now? No. So this is yet another failure in the Dylan Rounds case, another critical moment and critical piece of evidence as for evidence which points in a direction to where Dylan is at. All the evidence based on direction, most of it is lacking, has been lost. All the evidence to do with possessions of Dylan possibly, which don't really point to a direction, have been found. You see the pattern, right? Not looking too good in my opinion. Anything else? Yeah, besides that, the forensic testing failure in that key spot, also referred to and in the shed. Candice Cooley saying and in the shed. That it was all lost. Well, that's great, isn't it? But I think it's very important to acknowledge one thing, right? As I told you a couple of videos back, the key pieces of evidence which have never been talked about by Candice Cooley, despite being in the presence of some of them, was the backhoe with blood on, the hole in the ground within the grain shed, and some other bit of evidence too, right? Which Candice Cooley has never referred back to or ever talked about. And I was always like, well, why is that? People saying, and the shack lady saying, it all came from Candice Howard, who's another individual out there who may be in contact with Candice Cooley. But why would Candice Howard relay that information onto general public or certain individuals out there, but not Candice Cooley herself? Until the East Idaho News Channel interview. Besides the backhoe, which wasn't talked about, the shed was hinted on, right? Although Candice Cooley didn't say the hole in the grain shed, she said about DNA, some kind of evidence being found in the shed, which wasn't followed up on. Well, you'd assume the hole in the ground, something was dug up. But then is that a contradiction? Because shack lady is saying, biological matter was found in that little hole. Candice Howard supposedly saying it originally, and yet Candice Cooley now saying nothing was found there because it was lost. It wasn't done in time. The forensics wasted. What's going on? What's going on? Doesn't sound too good, right? All that wasted potential. Besides the truck, like this is the thing, the list has built as time has gone on. Originally, I just thought, it was Brenna's phone, which wasn't, collected data quick enough. And it was Dylan's pickup truck in which that 100 miles of data worth was lost. I thought that was it. But after hearing the interview today, well, yesterday, whenever, there's so much more evidence, potential evidence, which was never collected or recorded, and it's gone to waste with time, never to be seen ever again. That is bad. So, we'll do another poll right now. Based off what I've told you up to now from this recent interview, do you feel that lack of forensic testing in those suspicious areas, supposedly including the grain shed, has been detrimental to the downfall of progression made in this case? Yes, no, a little, I don't know. Make sure to vote right now, okay? We don't just stop there, we've got more information to get through, okay? So Nate Eaton asked a few good questions of his own, more of reflecting back around the day Dylan went missing, the 28th, and to do with communication there, okay? Candice Cooley, which I will say right now, kind of made another mistake, though it's not that bad, but I will acknowledge it. Previously, when Candice Cooley was talking about phone calls made, Dylan calling individuals. First one, 6:51 a.m. to the grandmother, Karen Rounds. Dylan made that call, saying, got to do this, got to park grain truck in grain shed, I'll call back later, which never occurred. Then at 6:58 a.m, making a call to Brenna, didn't respond back. And then 7:03 was the next timestamp, right, of Dylan's signal phone. But at 7:03, a phone call wasn't made, okay? It was just a phone ping down in that area near the grain shed, assumed that Dylan made it down there despite the gate being locked. In most recent interview, East Idaho News, Candice Cooley said, oh, Dylan flattened the gate, rolled it over onto the floor, and then proceeded to drive on. Is that doable, possible? Well, with the recent footage, what we looked at and analysed from, was it JLR, the guy with the baseball cap on and pointy nose? Yeah, it's very doable. It's a very rickety, fragile fence. You can easily flatten it on the ground, guaranteed. So likely that's what Dylan probably did. But in this East Idaho News Channel interview, when Candice Cooley was referring back to that phone call Dylan made to Brenna, Candice Cooley this time said, oh, Dylan made the call to Brenna at 7:03 a.m, not 6:58 a.m. Now, the time difference between the two timestamps isn't that great, but it makes no sense to why Dylan would call Brenna at 7:03 if that timestamp is at the grain shed. Why would Dylan need to make a call to Brenna when Dylan is literally stood near to Brenna's trailer? Why not just go up to his trailer and knock on the door instead of making a phone call outside of the trailer? That's what makes me believe Candice Cooley got that figure wrong, and what she meant to say from previous times was 6:58 a.m. call made to Brenna, and then no response. Then that's what, I guess, caused Dylan to flatten the fence because there was no hope. Brenna wasn't calling, no one else is present, the gate's locked, you got to get the grain truck in the grain shed before it rains. Screw this, flatten the gate, drive down there, 7:03, timestamp the next one of Dylan's phone signal. That's what I would say. That makes more sense. I just wanted to highlight that to you anyway, in case you were wondering. Now, the other question was to do with, what about Don Hately and Brenna? You know, their level of communication, right? In last night's video, we talked about how they're a bit of a double act. They keep appearing here and there and appearing together. Kind of like Dale and Graham, but in this case, more dodgy, more darker with Brenna and Don, right? Always seem to appear here and there together during these key times and events of Dylan going missing. Does make you think. Though Nate Eaton's question was more to do with, what about the 28th? What about the conversations that took place? Besides Dylan calling Brenna about the gate, I assume, did any other conversations take place throughout the day? And what Candice Cooley said was, she said Don Hately texted Brenna later on in the day about the barbecue. Okay, that's interesting, and I'll explain why. There's possible proof that the barbecue did take place. Recently, in the comment section, someone asked me, is there any proof that the barbecue took place? Well, if Don sent Brenna a text message about it, there's a form of proof. What it also does though, and it's a massive, massive contradiction to what Candice Cooley said in the beginning. She's not mentioned it ever since, so it's a big jump and a big leap. Take in mind, in the early days of this case, Candice Cooley said in an interview that Brenna's phone data, but as Americans say, and watch your crazy, phone data, okay, wasn't retrievable. It was lost. Why? Because the police didn't collect it in time and document it. That Brenna's phone was an old flip phone, which data and stuff on his phone only lasted for 7 days and then would be lost after. And that's why they didn't retrieve it in time. Well, if that's the case and it's been lost, then how can Candice Cooley in this recent interview confirm that Don texted Brenna about the barbecue? You know, does she know about Brenna's data, Brenna's text call log? Makes you think, right? And if not that, at least Don Haley's call text log. Must have been able to get a hold of those phones in the early days to see what was on it and the phone pings. So it's a positive that it possibly reignites and highlights that, yeah, there is a truth in that data was collected from those phones and the phone pings were collected, just like how some of the viewers on my channel were saying over the course of time. But it would have been good to hear it reconfirmed by people deeper in the case. And in a way, that's what's happened now by Candice Cooley, though it is a massive contradiction to what she said originally, that they were never collected because it was lost. But now she's here saying that they were found and that conversations did take place. So she must know more now than what she did back then, though she never addressed it in between. Okay? So there is that. Candice Cooley also added on, saying that Don Haley and Jim Brenna levels of communication vastly increased during the time when family were down there in Lucin searching for Dylan Rounds. Now, why is that? Well, you could just simply say maybe Don and Jim communicating more now because they're trying to look for Dylan. You might think that, but I think most people would be like, well, they're probably communicating in the background because of what's going on. Because of the presence of search and rescue, police, Candice Cooley family, all coming down in a short space of time, very shortly afterwards the murder of Dylan and burial, is probably like, oh, shit, weren't anticipating this, right? We've got to get on with stuff. We've got to move things. We've got to communicate and make sure we've covered our tracks and everything, etc. That's what I would be thinking. Let's do a poll right now, okay? Based off what we've heard here, do you think levels of communication increased between Don and Jim because of suspicious reasons or normal conversation, and that is all to do with Dylan? I'm going to say suspicious reasons, depending if I can fit it in the poll option or not. I mean communicating in the background about what is our next move? What should we do about Dylan? Have you hid that item? Have you returned that? That type of communication away from the police, away from the family, to try and clear up their tracks. Miss T was talking about the spring cleaning June 2nd, saying how ridiculous it was, how it all happened and unfolded. All I will say is it could have been a good opportunity in time to allow Brenna, maybe even Don, he may have tagged along with Brenna later, to do what they were doing, keep it all natural, like the police minding their own business but secretly monitoring. If they did react too soon, maybe Brenna would change his behaviour. You want it as natural as possible so you see the truth. And then catch up on Brenna later. Follow him in between, monitor. That never happened, so it was a complete failure. But there is possibilities to turn laziness into an actual reason for letting Brenna do what he did, right? What I do also want to add in, at the end of the day, spring cleaning, June the 2nd, police presence, family there, Candice Cooley, maybe search and rescue. A lot of people present, yet Brenna felt invincible enough to just walk on in and do what he wanted because he felt confident the police aren't going to do anything to him. Not a great deal in confidence with the LE, right? If Brenna, the criminal, the main guy, can think that way too and just get on, right? What I will say is, though, why the hell did Brenna not do spring cleaning on the 31st of May, a couple of days beforehand? 31st of May, Kurt Wadsworth making that phone call to family police about Dylan, hostage situation in Montello. False call, but was successful in getting the family and the police all down into Montello. Whether it was for an entire day or two, they were away from the place. That would have been the time, the perfect opportunity to go into the grain shed, move things about, hide, take stuff away, bag it, tag it, and not even get caught or questioned. He had the perfect timing and chance, yet Brenna didn't do that. Instead, he did it a few days later when everyone was present. So my question is to you, and make sure if you're watching right now, leave a response in the chat or the comment section. Why do you think it happened that way? And more so, main question, what was Brenna and Don doing the 31st of May? If the family and police went down to Montello to check for that false call to do with Dylan being held hostage down there, what was Brenna and Don doing? Casually sitting about, relaxing? Or were they planning other stuff in between, moving things? What do you think? Is it too soon to do another poll? It really is a bit too soon to be doing another poll, but to be honest, I don't care. We've got important points to get through. Tasha T is still recovering from the motion sickness of the map last night, so I don't think there's much hope for her right now with the polls, but never mind. We end the current poll right now, and the poll can be the new one. On the 31st of May, what do you think Don and Brenna were doing when family and police were down in Montello? Lazy, relaxing, doing work, something to do with Dylan, cover up? Make sure to vote right now, okay? So yeah, increasement in communication between certain suspects and the suspect, which has now been officially charged, Brenna, okay? Then, tying in with that, when referring back to how Dylan could have been disposed and when the time frame, Candice Cooley agreed and suggested that between Saturday to Sunday and even Monday morning, that's when it could have all happened. And I do agree. I'd say maybe Sunday is the key day when it actually happened. I'd say Saturday is when the desecration took place, and then being removed and moved elsewhere and concealed on a Sunday. Because on a Saturday, you take Dylan out, bury him temporarily, got to attend the barbecue, might even talk things through with Don Haley and even confess. And Don's like, right, we'll sort it out. Where did you put Dylan at this moment in time? Oh yeah, over here. Right, Sunday, all throughout the day, we'll get on with stuff and dispose of the rest and move Dylan. Maybe. That's the way I see it. The reason why Monday is a possibility, despite being the 30th of May when the family went down there to check for Dylan, Candice Cooley said that they arrived at the place later on in the day. So in the morning, early hours, there was still time to clear up if necessary, as the family weren't there immediately, right? So that's why that day was given as well. Now, moving on. This was more to do with reflecting back on Dylan Rounds, okay? Still to do with Dylan. Kind of interesting, depends how you look at it, okay? So besides the search for Dylan, Candice Cooley was saying how during the holiday period, okay, she was answering Nate Eaton's question about when it comes to that time of the year or time of the month. Tasha, I'm not talking about that month. Betty Hayward, red hand painting. Stick with that, but we're not talking about that time of the month either. Talking about holidays, occasions, celebrations, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Candice Cooley said during those holiday periods, these first-time experiences without their son Dylan, it's not as bad as what other families go through, because she worded it as Dylan and the other son would be constantly working and doing farming and stuff. So they would call in, here and there, say hi, whatever, and then be on their way after. So they didn't really spend too much time as a family. They didn't have all these big family get-togethers as other people do, like in the US. So when going through it all now, because Dylan wasn't really there then around the family, he's not there now at all, so it's not too much of a change. It sounds a bit dodgy, that way of wording it, but I guess it's just being honest in a way. But it makes you think, the way Candice Cooley worded it, Dylan would be working on Mother's Day or Thanksgiving. Dylan would be, I think Candice Cooley worded it as, Dylan would be more passionate about spending time farming than being with his own mother. Now, it just goes to show how determined and focused and how much farming means to Dylan. It could even imply a possible obsession with farming to distance yourself from family celebrations for the sake of farming. But then again, it's work, it's a job for Dylan at the time, and I guess farming is more demanding, takes up more time. So I guess that could be the motive for Dylan not being present that often. But are some people going to twist it and say, well, Dylan chose farming over family because of other reasons in the background? I don't know, but there's always that possibility someone will turn it in that direction. Just wanted to acknowledge it right now, okay? Now, that aside, referring back to Brenna and the current situation with him, Candice Cooley, tying back with that death penalty, even though it's off the table, it's on the table, on, off, like Indiana bent over the table. Indiana said her inner cave system spreads like the River Tame or something, or the London Bridge. Indiana, I think you've been leaning over the table a bit too long. Things have fused in position, have become stiff. Indiana, use your industrial WD-40 and you'll be perfectly fine. Okay? No need for Wes to come Brokeback Mountain style and undo you that way. We don't need to get to that stage. Okay? It's all under control, Indiana. Calm down. But yeah, the death penalty. Candice Cooley responded to Nate Eaton's question saying she really wants the death penalty on Brenna. Heck yeah, she said, in quotes, right? Why? Why do you want the death penalty on Brenna? So he suffers? Goes the same way as Dylan did, death, being killed? Yeah. But as said, isn't it more practical to see Brenna suffer over a longer period of time in jail, in prison, surrounded by other prisoners, inmates? That's what would make him feel uncomfortable. Maybe he doesn't fear death as much. So you'd want to put him in uncomfortable situations so he suffers more. And that seems to be more away from death penalty, right? Anyway, tying on with that, this is like the final point, but it's arguably just as important as some of the earlier ones. So everyone watching right now, we've got yet another really important point and response by Candice Cooley. I don't know if this will help Miss T understand or if it will cause her to fall on over and get frustrated and flustered. Well, maybe not flustered, I'm not showing the chest area, but just simply frustrated. Basically, Candice Cooley referred back to that plea deal offer to do with Brenna, originally offering to reveal information, the location of Dylan Round's remains. Candice Cooley responded back to that in this latest interview and said, even if that did happen, herself, she wouldn't feel satisfied. And when you hear that, you think, what? You get information, you can find your missing son, and you're not satisfied? What more do you want? Candice Cooley added an interesting point onwards. I don't know if it'll make you rethink stuff, but in quotes, she said, we could follow through with it. We could get Dylan back, but what if Jim Brenner reoffends in the future? That's on us. That's a very interesting point. You could say it's very selfless to think that way, to put the opportunity of finding your own son on the back burner whilst preventing any other families being hurt down the line. I fully understand this. I don't know if anyone else does. Still, they are sabotaging their own chances in finding their son, for sure. But it does cancel out the possibility of something else bad happening down the line by Brenna. Candice Cooley said that if the plea deal, on the conditions that if Brenna releases information, he gets years knocked off his sentence, that there's no death penalty either, that down the line Brenna could be released at some point. Candice Cooley does not want that outcome, because if Brenna is released down the line, he could re-offend. He's already re-offended countless times in the past, so most definitely it could happen again. The question is, though, if it did happen, who would be the next victim? Another family? Another younger individual? Who? How many? Could it be more that time? You never know. So Candice Cooley is thinking long term, the possible damage it could cause if Brenna was let free down the line. Who could he target next? Candice Cooley doesn't want that. She doesn't want that responsibility, that feeling of guilt, maybe. So that's maybe what guides her in her judgment, though it does overshadow and conflict with her pride emotion, as well as the stubbornness. Though maybe the stubbornness factor countering and conflicting with the pride of trying to find their own son without the help of the devil. The stubbornness translates to worried of what could happen in the future if Brenna is let out. She can't allow that to happen. She doesn't want anyone else to be hurt. So she's sacrificing her own chances of finding Dylan quicker to be able to keep other people out there in the community safe. So I fully understand all of that. It still probably isn't the most practical way. From the looks of it with Brenna and his health and his age, even if he was released down the line, he might be too ill, too old to actually pose as a threat, maybe. So wouldn't it be worth taking that risk to be able to get the information, find Dylan, and then Brenna can do whatever in jail time, prison time, and suffer that way? And then by the time he could be released, he might have passed away by then, but at least you got that information. So it's like the risk of, do you choose option A? Do you know what? Let's do a poll right now. Let me know what you would choose, what decision you would make, okay? If you were Candice Cooley right now, would you choose option A? Get information from Brenna, find your son earlier, or daughter, at the cost that down the line there is potential chances of another life being lost, another family being torn apart and hurt because of Brenna being released down the line and re-offend him? Or would you choose option B? Try and find Dylan yourself for that satisfaction, but the chances of it are significantly lower and it could take much longer. Possibilities you may never find Dylan. But the one positive is you ensure the safety of the community and the rest of the humans out there in public, that they will never be harmed by Brenna. Which option do you go for? A or B? Let me know your thoughts. It's quite, to some people it's a no-brainer, but maybe to other people they might think, I'm not quite sure. I would say choose option B if you felt confident enough and had the resources, equipment, and timing to be able to track down Dylan, of course. But the way this case has gone, option B doesn't seem like the most practical of choices, right? Option A. Yeah. So, yeah. That's basically the interview, okay, of what happened. Now, this video was longer than the interview itself, which is a bit ironic, but it was a bit deeper and I did have to compare and contrast to what we've previously heard of. As I said, I do feel this is one of the most important interviews to this day. But let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think it was as important as I think or not? Just list it down below. If you do have questions too and you want them to be answered, list them in the comment section. As well, be sure to like the video to help spread awareness. It was somewhat successful yesterday, so if we can keep up that consistency, that'll be appreciated. As well, to counter the treatment by YouTube towards me, that's a mess. There are links down below. One, if you want to check the previous video out, latest breaking news there with evidence found, be sure to click it. And then some other links down below if you want to support the channel in a certain way. Hopefully, at the end of this day, you enjoyed the video and was able to follow along somewhat easily. And if you did pick up on any other contradictions or information which I might have missed out on, not said, be sure to list it down below. I think we'll leave it there for now. I'm sure something will happen next. It always seems to happen. Time will tell though. So yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye, but good night for now. See you next time.